Hello, welcome to Monday night's show, The Indoctrination. I'm David Snedeker. Happy to be with you all this evening and very excited about the show tonight and connecting with you all. Thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing this out. Thanks for giving the thumbs up. Yeah, let's keep it going, my friends. This is some good stuff that's coming along. We are at November 3rd, 11/3. The title of the show is The Start, question mark. Is the start a date? Is the start Charlie Kirk? Is the start, um, the 11/3, does it stand for the occupation of our country? When you have a great country such as ours, that is impossible to conquer in a war due to the fact that our military is the best in the world, and you have over 300 million guns in this country, and any conquering would have to be boots on the ground to truly take over cities and counties and so forth. Now, there's another issue with the whole gun thing. One of the things that I just had a conversation recently, and I had done some research on this. One of the things that people say when they discount Q and the operation and the show and the plan is that they refer back to what was called Operation Trust in the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, and what led eventually to, statistics are varied, but the starvation and murder of, up to 60 million human beings. Stalin and Lenin. And one of the things that I remind people of is that, and I've gone down this road. Like, let's say that, this show, we're pretty much, Q is the real deal. We show constant proofs, constant. How did they know that was going to happen? Why were they talking about Antifa in 2017 at the level that they are? Why did they talk about Q, the military, the National Guard called up across 12 cities, et cetera? How did they know all that? We go down the pathway of the Trumps and their relationship with Tesla, John Trump's relationship with his work, and Tesla being able to see underneath that electric arc. He said he saw the past, present, and future at the same time. The Barron Trump books, the Ingersoll Lockwood, and all that, and it's almost too fantastical, right? It's almost like unbelievable because of its the sheer nature of it all, because we haven't experienced time travel. We haven't experienced what they claim the Operation Looking Glass is capable of doing. We haven't experienced what they say the yellow cube is capable of seeing into the future. But one could make the argument that if you plug enough information in, or if you're accumulating enough information, you can predict what's going to happen on a mass scale. Of course, that's a level of supercomputing that you and I haven't experienced either, and it's a level of AI that we haven't experienced. However, Q alludes to that quite often, and also there are many times when it's like, wow, why are Q and Trump, 10, 15 steps ahead of everybody and everything? Because it's obvious that, they've tried to take Trump out, and they've tried to discredit Q on a significant level. So this show kind of goes down that pathway, right? But many times I've said to you, what if Q is what the black pillars say, Q is what the mainstream media says. By the way, the black pillars and the mainstream media are on the same page there. Kind of odd, right? That they're actually agreeing with the mainstream media as to the essence and nature and legitimacy of the Q operation. So, but what if it's a psychological operation, much like Operation Trust was back in Russia? And I'll say there are two main things that make me disqualify that path right away. And I've shared it here on the show, and I'll share it again for those who have missed it or are new to my work. Not my work, but yeah, it's my work, but my research and my thoughts on the matter. So the one thing is, what's important to remember is that back in Russia, they made owning a firearm in Russia illegal unless you were in the Red Army, and that was in 1918. So they took the guns away. That has preceded every mass genocide in the history of firearms, because firearms are the great equalizer. A firearm can make an 80-pound woman much stronger than a 300-pound man. Can give somebody independence from fear. Conquering fear because you know that you have something that will protect you, protect your family, especially in crazy times such as these, when the Biden administration and the deep state and the Soros mechanism not allowed, but funded 20 million illegal migrants into our country. Cheers, everybody. And so a firearm is a great equalizer. It will allow a good person to take out a bad person. It protects people and so forth. And it also protects against the tyranny of a government. And, the First Amendment, right to worship as you'd like, and the right to free speech. And then the Second Amendment that followed it was to keep those two sacred. And the Second Amendment, of course, is the right to bear arms. Bear arms means you get to carry it. It doesn't mean it's locked up in your closet up in the bedroom. It means you can carry it. That wasn't a hunting license. That was in the case of a tyrannical government. Now, the other thing that's important to understand there is it's not just enough that we have our guns. It's important to not have been pussified or pacified to a level that we are afraid to use them against a tyrannical government or an invasion or mistreatment or crime or any of the above. And that has been the job of the indoctrination, to dumb us down, to make us passive. The job of the fluoride in the water and the weakened food and the weakened the drugs that weaken us, the alcohol that weakens us, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So So the one thing is they never took our guns. That was, as we saw, as I tracked, that was the role of Obama 8 years, Clinton 8 years, because we saw the false flags and we saw their erosion of our Second Amendment rights. Fast and Furious was an absolute scandal that was created by Barack Obama and Eric Holder, where they sold or gave guns to the Mexican cartels. And as a result, a border agent was murdered by one of the guns that they sold to the cartels. That was a big scandal that he has never answered for. Holder has never answered for. I'm guessing that's in one of the 550,000 indictments that are sealed. But that was the plan, to take our guns. The other plan was getting uranium-1 in the hands of Iran and North Korea to start a world war. The COVID was meant to lock us down for a lot longer than we were locked down, and to control humanity. And that was upset by the presidency of Donald John Trump. Now, the other thing is the black pillars that are throwing Trump under the bus, they're also agreeing with the mainstream media that Trump is the devil and Trump is a dictator and Trump is bad, orange man bad. So the black pillars have a lot in common with the mainstream media when it comes to Trump and Q. So you can see why I don't jump on that bandwagon and denounce Q, because things didn't happen in the timeline with which I had hoped, or that Trump is still taking actions that are questionable on, Iran, on Israel, on the vaccine, et cetera. But we're also seeing those things slowly eroding away too. And if I wasn't seeing the erosion and almost the planned erosion of those particular areas, I would probably be questioning Trump and Q as well. But I see the trajectory that we are on. So if Q is a psyop, there were two things. The one, they never got our guns, and there is no way that they're ever going to get them. And two is that they woke us up. The Great Awakening is the reason for this current revolution, this current information war that we are in. Q even put an @ symbol on the information war, knowing that this was all going to happen online. And that's exactly what's happening. And so if Q is a psyop, they made two horrible, horrible mistakes. One, they never got our guns. And two, they awakened humanity. And there's no going back to sleep. And so now you have an awakened and armed American population. The only way, and they know this, the only way that they were going to be able to conquer you and I and this nation was from within. And now we're seeing all of those involved in that within, all those involved with that level of sheer infiltration into our country. And the 11.3 awakened us to the Law of War manual that told us about the foreign occupation of our land. And that is what I see President Donald Trump fighting. Now, I don't see him fighting the Israeli control over our CIA or over our intelligence or over some of our politicians, including, but I do see him exposing it. I see X exposing it. I see people. I almost, it looks like a white hat script to me because you couldn't be any more obvious about the sheer level of indoctrination in the direction of Israel than what we're experiencing. Okay. Now, I'm gonna play something for you here, and we're gonna get into that a little bit um, because Ben Shapiro did a piece on this today, and it's a little long, but I'm gonna go to it. And I'm going to go to the levels of it that I'm just going to break it down a little bit and honestly tear it apart. And I'm going to show you how, and I'm going to show you why. And I think you're really going to get a lot out of it, especially those on X and other platforms that are seeing such an incredible amount of pro-Israeli propaganda in your news feed from people you don't even follow, and I think that that was meant to take place. I think that was actually intentional, even though I've been complaining about it because I want it out of my feed. Reading some of the comments, all these people that are posting are getting ratioed like crazy, and they're getting comments that are completely awakening people that are reading the comments. But before I go to Shapiro, I want to take you to Dan Scavino's post, which was yesterday. It was at 5:10 p.m. and I want to play this for you, and then I want to take you to the calm that I think that we were receiving here. Okay. Now I believe that's the F-35. Now the F-35, it first of all, it was at 5:10 p.m. and it was 22 seconds, the length. Let's go to the length of the video. 22 seconds, 22, November 1st, which is almost a delta, 2017. Remember, this video was on the 2nd. Who controls the National Guard? Why was the National Guard recently activated in select cities within the U.S.? We've seen it in Los Angeles. We've seen it in Washington, D.C., and we've seen it in Memphis, Tennessee. Can the National Guard work in coordination with the Marines? The answer to that is yes. We've seen it happen in Los Angeles. Do conditions need to be satisfied to authorize? Yes, they do. But we've seen those conditions, and we've seen these liberal judges try to say that that can't be the case. But if that decision holds, and President Trump is not allowed to engage the National Guard or the Marines into these cities to bring about peace and stop the killings, President Trump can simply sidestep that with the Insurrection Act. And with this Charlie Kirk narrative that we've seen going down this road of, and by the way, my friends, hats off to Spiritual Street Fighter. You can't see the whole thing, unfortunately, but let me show you the whole video, which is, or the whole image, which is pretty badass. Speaking of, time travel and so forth. This is the full on Future Proofs Past with the DeLorean, and President Trump and Barron, everybody that I was just talking about. And there's a reason why people like Spiritual Street Fighter and I and many others, many other uh, anons believe that there's something to this because of the way things have been playing out. So, and I'll take you to this X post. Somebody that Spiritual Street Fighter reposted, RN Patriot 1776, accidentally went into the wrong door at Mar-a-Lago. There's a bunch of DeLoreans there. I think that's fantastic. By the way, so at any rate, thanks to Spiritual Street Fighter for that beautiful graphic, and just a fun graphic too. My God, folks. I mean, this has been a shit show that we've been living in. If we can't have a little fun, what are we doing here? We're killing ourselves. And so the Charlie Kirk narrative is complete bullshit. This Tyler Robinson, we had so many comms, so many holes, more than a block of Swiss cheese, the holes in that story. So absurd, in fact, that I'll take you to this story. And this story, hold on one second, please. Let me just calm the background there. There we go. This story, resist the mainstream. Kash Patel, working against Tulsi Gabbard, shuts down investigations into Charlie Kirk's death. Anthony Gonzalez, this was 2 days ago. A fierce split has erupted at the top of America's National Security Agency as FBI pushed back against plans to expand Tulsi Gabbard's authority. The Bureau warned Congress that giving Gabbard control over counterintelligence operations would be a mistake. The letter obtained by the New York Times shows the FBI strongly opposed the proposal, citing serious risks to national security. Let me go to read only. This is disgusting to have to sift through that many ads. The unsigned letter had the backing of FBI Director Patel before being sent to lawmakers. Patel's note vigorously disagrees with the plan and warned it could cause serious and long-lasting damage to U.S. national security. Gabbard's office issued a joint statement with the FBI claiming that they are working together to strengthen counterintelligence efforts. The ODNI and the FBI are united in working with Congress to protect the safety, security, and freedom of the American people, Gabbard's spokesperson said. An intelligence official told the Daily Mail that the FBI's letter was a preemptive response to an ODNI process document and part of routine interagency coordination. The House proposal would have placed nearly all counterintelligence functions under Gabbard's control, sparking alarm across the intelligence community, according to the Daily Mail. Mark Warner, Senator, he is not a senator from Indiana. He's a senator from Virginia. The senior member of his party on the Intelligence Committee called the plan misguided and criticized the expansion of Gabbard's office. Since taking office, Gabbard has disbanded central units under her supervision, including teams handling election security in the National Intelligence University. The friction escalated when Joe Kent, a staunch Gabbard ally and head of the National Counterterrorism Center, investigated the murder of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. Kent reportedly accessed FBI files to determine if foreign powers assisted Kirk's alleged killer, raising tensions with the Bureau. Patel intervened, shutting down the investigation and arguing that Kent overstepped by using FBI materials in an ongoing case. The move sparked a tense White House meeting with Patel, Kent, Gabbard, Vice President J.D. Vance, White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, and senior DOJ officials. Kent insisted he was performing his duties and following leads to protect national security. Trump administration officials were concerned Kent's probe could give Robinson's defense lawyers leverage, suggesting multiple suspects were involved in Kirk's death. The clash exposes growing unease between Gabbard, her allies, and top intelligence leaders, with Patel asserting the counterintelligence authority cannot be centralized under a single office. Patel's decision to shut down investigations relating to Kirk's death has put him in a predicament with many conservatives who are questioning the FBI director's move. Conservative commentator Candace Owens expressed her distrust of Patel for shooting down such investigations. It's like Kash Patel wants to be the sole point person on this. Why? I do not trust him at all, she said. This article is literally how Kash Patel is upset that Joe Kent and Tulsi Gabbard are trying to do their jobs and solve the Charlie Kirk murder case. It's like Kash Patel wants to be the sole point on this. Why? I do not trust him at all. Jones said, global bombshell, Kash Patel officially caught trying to block Tulsi Gabbard's investigation. At first reported by Alex Jones in late September, the White House has now confirmed that Kash Patel has attempted to do that. Okay, so how do I read this? Well, first off, it's really important to understand the importance of the direction that Kash Patel is going. Almost like, I want him to investigate Tyler Robinson. Okay. Why? Because that direction is the direction that leads us to the Soros, the USAID, all this taxpayer funded money that is going into Antifa, BLM, the trans, activist movements. This whole gender dysphoria financing, the whole gender, operations for children, the story time, what do you call it? The transvestite story hour, and the books and the things in the children's schools. This is all money that has been funneled in that direction for this narrative. And the only reason that this fake murderer, Tyler Robinson, this did not happen, it did not happen the way we have heard, is to uncover all of those things. The reason why it's got more holes than freaking a colander is because they want us looking elsewhere. Those who already know that this is bullshit, they want us looking elsewhere. Okay. Meanwhile, he may not even be dead. I don't think he is. But there are two directions that we have to look. One is this one. The other is where everyone's looking, because this one's bullshit. The ones that are awake know that this is bullshit, so they're looking at Israel. Because Charlie was pulling away from Israel. That's a fact. That's in his own words. So Q said there are three sides of the triangle. The first one fell in September of 2017. That was the House of Saud. That took the military. That took the National Guard. Trump loaned bin Salman the National Guard to go in there and to arrest and to detain at the Riyadh Ritz-Carlton. I think it was like 287 people, including his mother, including Prince Al-Walid, and they cleaned house. And that was a part of cleaning up the child trafficking as well, and cutting the purse strings from people like Hillary Clinton, the McCain Foundation, et cetera, et cetera. So the other two sides of the triangle that Q has told us about are Soros and Rothschilds. Well, this direction of the Charlie Kirk assassination, which I think was 11-3 because of the 47, 47, 47 hat, 11, 11, 11, 3 11s. Charlie Kirk is 311. Think Mirror, 11-3, the start, because the population was so enraged by that assassination that they want to go down every avenue. And the two main avenues are Soros, with all this funding of all those people, and Rothschilds, which is created Israel, and the Khazarians are in control of Israel. Those are the final two sides of the triangle. Soros is first because we're saving Israel for last. Soros' side of the triangle is going to go down with all of this investigation. Now, my belief on this whole situation, it's just my take on it. Cash is in on it. Cash isn't dumb. Bongino's not dumb. Bondi's not dumb. They're smart people. They know there's the same amount of holes that we see. So why are they still going down this direction? Because they have to unearth all those things that funded that movement. That is tearing up our country. It's tearing up our families. It's tearing up the young minds and hearts of children that are confused and being given, 22 genders or 12 genders in kindergarten and transvestite story hour. And if you feel more like a girl, we can turn you into girl. No, they can't. These doctors are just as inept at turning a girl into a boy or a boy into a girl as they were at helping us through COVID. Doctors, most that have come up through the Rockefeller system, are not there intentionally to make us better. They are there intentionally to make us worse, to feed us full of bad food with the food pyramid and all that bullshit, the margarine, because we got to, cholesterol's a bad thing, and you can't have salt, and, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, all the bullshit. Smoking's good for you. Fluoride is good for you. Mercury in your fillings is good for you. These are all fucking doctors. Okay. And they're just as inept at gender change as they are at all those other things. And it's all about the money. It's all about the Benjamins. And so this is tearing up our children. I mean, we're as adults, fucking step up and fucking call people out. This is bullshit. Gender dysphoria, shove it up your fucking ass. Okay? Our children have enough problems, growing up in really toxic environments in the home or in school or on their sports team or in their church. There's constant jockeying for position, and there's bullying, and there's body shaming and name shaming, et cetera, et cetera. And then they go through puberty, and we're hitting them with all this gender dysphoria bullshit. No wonder they're fucking confused, because we adults are a bunch of fucking assholes that aren't stepping up and calling this shit out for what it is. And so that path is so important. I want them to keep going down that path. Please understand this. I think Charlie's alive. I want them to keep investigating Tyler Robinson. There's something worked out there. I don't know what it is, but I want them to go down that path, because the people get on board, and they want them to find a solution to this. They want them to find somebody responsible. And I want those of us that are awake to go down the Israel path, because they have a very long history of political assassinations. So we're supposed to you know, be dumbfounded that anybody would question whether or not they're involved in something like this. Oh my God, I can't. You're anti Semitic if you believe that Israel was somehow involved. How the fuck do you put those two and two together? Am I anti American because I know the CIA assassinated people? Does that make me anti American because I challenge the CIA? No. So don't buy this anti Semitism bullshit. Okay. If a Jew wants to dine with me, I will dine with them. Many of them don't because in some of their literature, um, you are not to, eat with a Gentile. It's like eating with an animal. But I will dine with you. I will, you know, hang with you. I will love you just as another human being should to one another. So don't be bringing up this anti Semitic bullshit because I'm challenging your piece of shit government. Okay. So both these paths are absolutely necessary. Now, this path is a need to know only. I think people like Cash and Dan know and all the people involved, but they have to keep it. It's almost like a local jurisdiction doesn't want the feds coming in because they want to control it and they want to protect the people that they're loyal to in an investigation. That's the similar type of thing. So now Joe Kent doesn't believe in this story, so he goes snooping around and starts questioning stuff. They have to have a meeting and they have to read Joe Kent in and Tulsi in, if Tulsi wasn't already read into, listen, we know this is bullshit, but we have to go down this path because it's a false flag. All false flags, they utilize like there's no tomorrow. And this particular false flag, they're utilizing this to open up the books and open up the lifeline and all the strings that are funding all these things that are really, really bad for our country. And because it's so full of shit, there's a lot of awake people looking over here, right? So let's go back to Dan. The Q drop that he took us to with that F-35 jet. So can the National Guard work in coordination with the Marines? Yes. Do conditions need to be satisfied to authorize? Yes. And also not just the conditions, but you want people, you want the American population to buy in. That's why every false flag was used to get us into World War I, Lusitania, World War II, Pearl Harbor, Vietnam with the USS Maddox and the Gulf of Tonkin, Iraq War with the weapons of mass destruction. All of it was like bullshit. 9/11 to get us into the Middle East. Okay, it never happened the way they told us it happened. None of it. So do conditions need to be satisfied? Yes, but other conditions that need to be satisfied is our awareness of what's really going on so that we can support it. Like, yes, go after the trans stuff and all that nonsense. What former president used the military to save the republic and what occurred exactly? This was Lincoln with the sequestering the House of Representatives in Maryland, the Maryland House, so that they would not secede from the Union, which would have turned the tables in the direction of the South, winning the war. Biggest drop to ever be provided on Post Online. Study and prepare. The masses tend to panic in such situations. No war, no civil unrest, clean and swift. Okay. This is huge. Now, let's go to the timestamp. 5:10. We drop the zero. It's a repost November 2nd. So that was a delta as well. Whenever they post the timestamp that ends up on the delta, it's definitely a com. One nation under God. This is a letter from an Anon to Q. I'll read it for you. I've watched as society has been effectively addicted to mainstream media, apps, social media, games, music, all propaganda. And the moment you try to open anyone's eyes, you are shunned. Ring a bell for anybody in the chat? Okay, this was 2017. Being dumbed down, weakened, and groomed for passivity and stupidity through food and their addictions, like calf literally being fattened for a slaughter. And with all the race war propaganda and Pizzagate possibility, I became suicidal because I can't stand that no one will open their eyes and are being manipulated hard. I hope with all of my heart that Trump is going to make good on his promise to MAGA and clean the swamp. I've been thinking about joining the Navy for Corpsman Greenside, and I would love to serve under a Trump administration if he really does clean swamp. We'll try to join regardless. No openings for corpsmen right now. I hope that what OP Anon says is true, another Anon. I will be praying for OP Anon and all who risk their lives for safety, and that the Lord will guide them. And praying that what he says is true, and we'll be praying for the spiritual edification of God for Trump and for his safety, complete safety in all of this. A lot of people have been praying for his safety and for Q's safety. We've done it on this show countless times. The pieces are coming together for me, and if this is true, those working with him are absolute geniuses, because I would never have never imagined there would be any way possible to take the monster of corruption that has overtaken this country. Doesn't it seem insurmountable? I have said this many times. I was awake for 12 years or 11 years before Q came along. Up until that point, I went through Clinton's, I went through Obama. It seemed absolutely insurmountable. How are we ever going to dig ourselves out of this mess? Q says, "Dear Patriot, we hear you. We hear all Americans such as yourself. The time has come to take back our great land. The time is now. Rest assured, POTUS is backed by the absolute finest people alive, who are all dedicated to the eradication, evil, and corruption from the U.S. and world. Find peace. God is with us. God bless, and be safe." The White Hats. It's signed. It's not even Q. It's the White Hats. Okay? Not the White House, because rest assured, POTUS, he would be the White House. The White Hats. Okay? Now, people will tell you, excuse me. Cheers, everybody. Welcome to the Sned Shed. Make yourselves comfortable. Check your coat. All the preconceived notions, unconscious bias, indoctrination. Just imagine wrapped up in your coat. You just take off your coat, check it at the coat check. Come on in, grab a snack, favorite drink, favorite beverage, favorite you, favorite partner, favorite pet, and let's have a good night together. Cheers. A lot of the black pillars say that Q is pacifying us, and that we are being, like we're supposed to just sit back and eat popcorn. Not the case at all. Q has fueled a revolution. I'm a part of that. I was inspired by Q because I did feel overwhelmed by all this shit that we were getting dumped on, and how are we ever going to get out of this? Like the medication nation, incarceration nation, the vaccination, the absolute, every spot, every area of society, we were being controlled. And when Q came out and said Hillary Clinton's getting arrested, Podesta, Huma, we knew who all those people were. We were like, yeah, right on, man. Something's going down here. And it wasn't like, Robert David Steele dressing up in a fake robe and creating a fake, group of people that were talking about the pedophilia that running rampant in the world. That was like controlled opposition. That was like, what are you talking about? I never bought into that shit because it was like, yeah, we're going to do something here. There was no teeth in that bark. So nothing was ever done, but people thought, oh, he's on it. So we got it good, right? It's like the environmentalists. It's like the Greenpeace that gets in front of a whaling vessel. Guess what? There's 1,000 other whaling vessels around the world. That's all for fucking show. Who funds those? The actual oil companies and companies that need controlled opposition so that we see it and think, oh yeah, somebody's on that. That's not my bag of tricks. It's not my cup of tea. But Greenpeace is on that, or the environmentalists are on that. They got it taken care of. No, they don't. Controlled opposition across the board. So this is all why this is going on between DNI and FBI is because they have to contain this. They know it's a sack of shit, but they have to contain it because they have to unearth all that stuff that direction is going to unearth. I've said to you, listen, cui bono, whenever a big event like that happens, you got to ask cui bono, who benefits. And who benefited? Well, the transvestite community didn't benefit. Soros didn't benefit. They're going after his shit. Israel, did they benefit? I don't know. I think you just, Charlie Kirk that was questioning Israel. Now you got like millions of people that are questioning Israel. Tens of millions, hundreds of millions around the world that are questioning Israel. I don't think they benefited. Excuse me. Who benefited? The white hats. But they're not going to kill Charlie. No. That's why I'll meet you in Valhalla, right? The witness protection. This is, they're showing us the clues. It's just, so any rate. Let's get to, so that was Dan's post, which was very, very Daystein. Let me take you to, here we go. Okay, let me take you to Shapiro-Stein. Now, this, here we go. Sorry about that. This is very interesting because I told you I watched the Tucker Nick Fuentes interview. Okay. Excuse me. He did as well. And he's going to tell us what he thinks. And I can't wait to hear it. Not because I value what he has to say, or I value listening to his whiny little voice, or his superlatives that make him seem smarter than he is. I want to hear what he has to say because we are seeing an absolute onslaught of propaganda promoting Israel, defending Israel at every step of the way. So much so, me think she doth protest too much.
Hey, folks, I want to do something different on today's show. We're going to cover one topic in depth. That topic is, I think, the most important thing happening in the country. It was a hot topic last week, but I wanted to take some time to really gather my thoughts, and speak on it in coherent fashion, holistic fashion. That topic is the fragmentation of.
And by the way, I am aware that 99% of you here do not want to listen to this guy for the next 40 minutes. Trust me, it'll be worth it. Okay. I'm gonna stop it quite often and jump in and really get into what's going on here. Okay. So, you know, hike up your pants, and we're going to wade through the shit. Okay.
The political right. That fragmentation is being caused purposefully by a splinter faction of people led by a young man named Nick Fuentes. They call themselves the Groypers. They are white supremacists. They hate women, Jews, Hindus, many types.
Okay. First thing is the people that are challenging Israel. He's very clear from the get-go that it's a splinter faction, and it's a group of Groypers led by Nicholas Fuentes. Now, I don't think I've showed Nick Fuentes on this show. Maybe once or twice, when it might have been since Kirk. He's not my guy. Okay. He's very extreme. He's young, he's gay, he's got a lot of views that I don't agree with. And he really pushes the envelope, almost such that you think that he might be controlled opposition, because remember, think about Alex Jones, right? A lot of us were behind Alex Jones. A lot of us were like, yeah, he's, taking it to the man and this and that. And then he goes on Piers Morgan and he finally gets mainstream notoriety and he loses his shit. You try to take our guns, we're going to bring 1776 all over again. Listen, when you're right and you have truth on your side, you don't have to get that bent out of shape, especially not when millions of people are watching you to see what you're all about, and then realize you're a fucking nutcase as well as all the people that watch you and listen to you. So guess what? For the next several weeks, people that knew I listened to Alex Jones. Hey, how's your leader doing? Boy, he looked great the other night on TV. It totally delegitimized everything we were working for. Okay. So controlled opposition, which Q called him out as being Mossad. This is what is happening with Nick Fuentes and Tucker Carlson, by the way, is they're demonizing them. They're putting them out and they're making them you and I. We are not them. We are very different from them. You are different from me. But what they're going to do is they're going to try to put us all in this basket with Nick and Tucker. Now, some of the things they talk about, yeah, I'm on board with, but I am not them. You are not them, but they will try to put us all in that basket. And as they putting us all in that basket, they discredit the hell out of this basket as best they can. That is what his mission is here. That is what he's getting paid for.
Of Christians, brown people of a wide variety of backgrounds, blacks, America's foreign policy, and America's Constitution. They admire Hitler and Stalin. And that splinter faction is now being facilitated and normalized within the mainstream Republican Party. The main agent in that normalization is Tucker Carlson, who is an intellectual coward, a dishonest interlocutor, and a terrible friend. And Tucker Carlson last week was aided, abetted, celebrated for normalizing Nazism within the Republican Party by the mainstay organization of the traditional right, the Heritage Foundation. Now, before we explain what's been happening, let's make one thing clear. This is not about free speech or cancellation. It was never about free speech or cancellation. Free speech has a definition: the right to speak free of governmental coercion. I believe in it, of course. I've always defended it. Criticism of bad speech is, in fact, just a form of free speech. Cancellation also has a definition: the banning of particular people, including people like Nick Fuentes, from platforms like X or Facebook. I believe that Nick Fuentes is odious and despicable, but I've never called for his cancellation. And in fact, I've called for his restoration to those services, despite the fact that I think he's odious and despicable. It is not cancellation to draw moral lines between viewpoints. In fact, we used to call that one of the key aspects of conservatism. It is not cancellation to refuse to signal boost Hitler's supporters like Nick Fuentes. It is not cancellation to criticize Tucker Carlson for rhetorically fluffing Nick Fuentes and other anti-American crackpots. It's not cancellation if you urge others to stop promoting those who rhetorically fluff Nazi apologists. Those are all elements of free speech. And anyone who says differently is lying to you, and lying for the most cynical reasons, to misdirect from their own defense of those Nazi apologists and their promoters. The issue here isn't that Tucker Carlson had Nick Fuentes on his show last week. He has every right to do that, of course. The issue here is that Tucker Carlson decided to normalize and fluff Nick Fuentes, and that the Heritage Foundation then decided to robustly defend that performance. Those who criticize both Tucker and Heritage aren't canceling. They are quite properly drawing a moral line. So, for those who don't understand what's going on, let's begin with Nick Fuentes.
I just want to bring up a point. Fluff is, a fluff, is light, soft, airy, right? But in journalism, it's known as a puff piece. If you're kind of like, you don't ask the really tough questions. But fluff is also a slang term for, keeping a porn star hard. So they got fluffers that are hired for porn movies that are blowing these guys to keep them hard until they set up the lighting or do whatever. So he's using this word full well knowing with his vocabulary. He knows damn well what that word means. And he's putting this image in people's mind that they're actually, that he was fluffing him. And knowing Nick is gay, Tucker's a family man, but he's using this derogatory term. Yeah, he doesn't want to see their voice taken away by the platforms, but by God, he wants to see their voice besmirched and discredited and not given any credibility whatsoever. That's his mission.
Now, as I mentioned, last week, Tucker Carlson had on Nick Fuentes. Fuentes is a 27-year-old man who's dubbed himself the leader of a movement called the Groypers. He has a large audience of alienated young white men in particular, and he's earned increased media attention over the course of the past few years, especially over the last year. Now, from Tucker Carlson's interview, you might have gathered that Fuentes has some borderline views on race, a peculiar obsession with what he calls organized Jewry, and a rather sad relationship with the female sex. But probably you came away thinking that, for the most part, Fuentes lives on the radical edge of normality. You think that if you watch the interview, because Tucker Carlson decided that it was important not only to host Fuentes, but to smooth over his views, water them down, and make them far more palatable to a normal audience. As we'll discuss in a bit, this is what Tucker Carlson does for a living. But back to Nick Fuentes. To understand just what Tucker did here, we must actually examine what Nick Fuentes says on his show, and has said for almost a decade, because he was asked precisely 0 questions about any of what you're about to see by Tucker Carlson. Nick Fuentes says women want to be raped.
A lot of women want to be raped. And when I say raped, I mean like, that sounds bad when I say it like that. But there's like a lot of women that really want a guy to beat the shit out of them. But also they have to pretend, but part of it is they have to pretend like they don't.
Nick Fuentes says that his followers should kill, rape, and die in his name.
Raise
Now hold on. There's speculation that he's gay. I honestly don't know if he is or not, but there have been some speculation and so forth that he is. Tucker called him gay. He later apologized, but so I don't actually know, but I think Ben seems to be hung up on it. So let me continue.
your right hand. All right, everybody raise your right hand. Raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I will kill, rape, and die for Nicholas J. Fuentes.
Does anybody think that Nick Fuentes was being serious there?
Nick Fuentes says that women are whores who shouldn't be in politics.
I will continue my crusade against women in politics. Because it's always like this, and it's so ironic.
By the way, just a side note, what is Nick, like 18, 19 years old here? Maybe 20, okay? And Ben Shapiro is going back to these videos to delegitimize what he says today.
Women are like, I don't like, when you say, I like, you have to affect the face. When you say to repeal the 19th Amendment, that offends me. That hurts my feelings. It's like, have you ever stopped and considered that maybe if you get offended, there's such a strong emotional reaction to political opinions you disagree with across the board? Maybe that's one of the reasons why you shouldn't be making political decisions. I'm not attacking women. I'm attacking whores. You have no problems, right? I'm attacking whores. I'm attacking sluts. Stupid, dirty bitches.
Nick Fuentes.
By the way, it looks pretty professional there, but Nick was in his basement at his parents' house. He had a green screen behind him and had that whole setup, like just, you know, on the screen. He was under 20, I think, there.
Says that Jim Crow was actually better for black people.
It was better for them too, number one, but number two, who cares? Who cares? You know, enough with the Jim Crow stuff. Who cares? Oh, to drink out of a different water fountain. Big fucking deal. Oh no, they had to go to a different school. Their water fountain in that famous picture was worse. Who cares? Grow up, drink out of the fucking water fountain. It's water, it's the same. You know, and, you know, even if it was bad, who cares? Who cares? It's better. It's better in general. We all agree it was better for them. It's better for us. Better in general.
Literally, he's like, you know, what is it? What's his name in Garth in their basement, you know, playing the guitar and having a talk show. I mean, you know, he's really digging to find this stuff.
Fuentes says that white people are justified in being racist.
Reason that we talk about this, by the way, I know a lot of black people see this and they go, man, why are you always talking about black people, this and that? Because there just needs to be some shame here. Well, there's a few reasons. First, white people are every single bit justified in being racist. Every single bit justified, to the extent that that means going out of your way to avoid black people when you see them.
Nick Fuentes is a Hitler admirer and
by the way, that's accurate for a lot of people. And that could be seen as a sense of racism, or it could be seen as a sense of self-protection because of what we see in the inner cities, and highly justified. Just that particular action. That doesn't mean he couldn't sit down with a black person and have a beer and shoot the shit. That means somebody, you know,
Holocaust denier.
The Holocaust denier.
Buddy, it's Führer Friday. It is Hitler Friday. Shut up. It is Heil Hitler Friday, nigga. Heil Hitler, all my niggas, Nazis.
Hitler was a pedophile and kind of a pagan. It's like, well, he was also really fucking cool. So, you know, time to grow up. We're not children anymore. Am I right? Am I right? Am I right, boys? Am I right? Let's go.
You know, listen, it's pretty kind of wild, some of the stuff he's saying, but again, those two last videos, he is more recent. This is back when he's a kid again. Sounds like he's talking to his buddies, saying shit that you know doesn't make any sense. But you know, those of us that have questions about World War II and the Holocaust and Hitler, that are because we've realized that our modern day news is lying to us every single day. And then we found out that the history books are also lying to us. So we have questions. But you see, Ben Shapiro will group anybody that has questions about what happened then as Holocaust deniers and group us in with Nick Fuentes.
He was also really fucking cool. It doesn't really sound correct to me. Wait a second. It takes 1 hour to cook a batch of cookies, and you have 15 ovens, probably in 4 different kitchens, right? Doing 24 hours a day, every day for 5 years. How long would it take you to make 6 million? I don't know. It certainly wouldn't be 5 years, right? The math doesn't seem to add up there. The math doesn't quite seem to add up there. I don't think you'd result in 6 million, maybe 200 to 300,000 cookies. And I think the Red Cookie Association said something like that, probably 200 to 300,000 cookies baked. Probably
talking about Russia. Also, you know, those of us who have questioned the numbers, you know, we're being grouped in with Nick's really, you know, some of his obscene comments in order to discredit us all. So if he is controlled opposition, you can see where that's very effective.
Probably. And in addition, you know, in this hypothetical, I imagine that if you took aerial photographs over the kitchens, you would need to see certain smokestacks to release the smoke from baking the cookies. And the smokestacks would project certain shadows, but I guess they're not visible in the aerial photographs taken over the kitchens. Moreover, if you look at the soil texture, it's really not deep enough for mass cookie storage underground.
Nick Fuentes believes that the Jews start all the wars, that perfidious Jews in positions of power ought to be killed, and says the Jews are filth who have to be removed from the country.
And once again, remember who is responsible for it all: the Jews. They are responsible for every war in the world. It's not even debatable at this point. This has nothing to do with oil. This has nothing to do with democracy. This has nothing to do with liberal internationalism. We are at war with Iran because they pose a threat to Israel's hegemony. That's why we're bombing their nukes, to pave the way for regime change so Israel can dominate the region, because that makes them the most powerful they can be.
Now, a couple things. One is that great point, James, about no true patriots follow these guys. But a couple things. One is that these guys are not Q either. So they don't see the importance of President Trump taking out Iran's nuclear facilities that were given to them by Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama to start World War III. Okay. They also don't talk about North Korea, which also got nuke information from the Uranium One deal and uranium from Uranium One deal. And that the White Hats took out that mountain in North Korea to stop their nuclear program, because all of that was to create World War III. Okay. Let's see. There was a question here. TNC said, what are your questions regarding the Holocaust? The numbers, 6 million, 6 million, 6 million was used by the New York Times talking about the Jews multiple times before, you know, back in the teens, the 20s, before World War II ever happened. And there's plenty of evidence of that. It would have been impossible for them to kill that many Jews in that amount of time. You know, I've read and listened to David. Sorry, I'm blanking on his name right now. The historian that was like one of the renowned 20th century historians of all time, until he wrote the book Hitler's War, where he actually interviewed people and read the diaries of people involved in World War II in the Hitler administration. So there are a lot of questions surrounding that. And conveniently, Rothschilds had the Balfour Declaration and had this land over in Palestine for them to go to, back to the Promised Land. And that was all forced. That wasn't organic. It wasn't like, hey, let's go back to our homeland. It was all forced. It was all manufactured, and it was manufactured for in the benefit of the Jews. Also, how many countries they've been kicked out of, ostracized from, because it's over 109, I think, because of the banks. Hitler shut down the central bank. He took away the money that they were making off income tax, etc. So those are some of my questions, right? Let me get back to this.
There is an occult element at the high levels of society, and specifically among the Jews. So many of the people that are perpetrating the lies and the destruction on the country, they are evildoers. They are people that worship false gods. They are people that practice magic or rituals or whatever. And more than anything, those people need to be, when we take power, they need to be given the death penalty. Straight up. And I'm far more concerned about that than I am about even non-white people or mass migration. These people that are communing with demons and engaging in this sort of witchcraft and stuff, and these people that are suppressing the name Christ and suppressing Christianity, they must be absolutely annihilated when we take power. This is God's country. This is Jesus's country. This is not the domain of atheists or devil worshippers or perfidious Jews. This is Christ's country.
Josh Hammer and Mark Levin, fuck these people. Like, deeply, seriously. All real Americans, if you are a real American, if you were born in this country, I don't even care who you are, what you are. If you are a real American that loves this country, you have generations in this country, your family or you fought for this flag, fought for the Constitution, fought for our church, fought for our civilization. For all of you, I say about Josh Hammer and Mark Levin and Laura Loomer, fuck them. Fuck them. Deeply, seriously, get them the fuck out of our country.
I agree with him on that. Okay. But Ben is going to take the high road, doesn't use that kind of language. But Fuentes is wrong for saying those things. Meanwhile, look at the information that those people put out.
Nick Fuentes, it should be mentioned, despises.
Nick Fuentes, it should be mentioned, despises. Fuck off, Shapiro.
Donald Trump and the MAGA movement as well.
Fuck you. Fuck you. You suck. You are fat. You are a joke. You are stupid. You are not funny. You are not as smart as you think you are. You are, and honestly, and if you watch my show, I've been very critical. I've never been this far. This just goes to show this entire thing has been a scam.
Not Q. The reason why I don't share him on our show, very anti-Trump, because he sees what Trump has done with Israel in the past. And he doesn't understand the whole picture, which you need Q to understand.
When we look back on the history of populism in America, we are going to look back on the MAGA movement as the biggest scam in American history. And the liberals were right. The MAGA supporters were had. They were.
So.
No, we weren't. You just don't see the big picture.
That right there is just a brief glimpse into the twisted mind of Nick Fuentes.
But Ben does support Trump. Along with, pushing the vaccine and COVID story and narrative, and Israel can do no wrong.
And there's plenty more where that came from. Of course, hours of it per day, in fact. And there's no doubt that Nick Fuentes has a lot of play these days. That's because the left, by moving into a politics of anti-white, anti-Christian, anti-male identitarianism, created its bizarro mirror image, a white pseudo-Christian incel identitarian movement dedicated to destroying the institutions of this country and replacing Americanism with something else. Nick Fuentes' philosophy is not fully formed. It's an incoherent stew of malignity. But that's where Tucker Carlson enters the story. Now, since his exit from Fox News in 2023, when, of course, he was a very, very popular host, Tucker Carlson has turned himself into a conspiracist and a crank and a pathological liar.
Conspiracist? So anybody who's a conspiracist, he's using this term as a negative.
Tucker excuses Vladimir Putin's murderous and barbarous reign. He has even become one of his most ardent defenders.
It is so much nicer than any city in my country. I had no idea. My father was...
By the way, everything that Tucker is about to tell you about Russia is 1,000% true. And he called him a liar.
I don't have time there. In the 80s, when you worked for the U.S. government, it barely had electricity. And now it is so much cleaner and safer and prettier aesthetically. It's architecture, it's food, it's service, than any country, city in the United States that you have to, and this is non-ideological. How did that happen? How did that happen? And at a certain point, I don't think the average person cares as much about abstractions as about the concrete reality of his life. And if you can't use your subway, for example, as many people are afraid to in New York City because it's too dangerous, you have to sort of wonder, like, isn't that the ultimate measure of leadership? And that's true, by the way, it's radicalizing for an American to go to Moscow, I didn't know that, I've learned it this week, to Singapore, to Tokyo, to Dubai and Abu Dhabi. Because these cities, no matter how we're told they're run and on what principles they're run, are wonderful places to live.
So I guess you put in 10 rubles here and you get it back when you put the cart back. So it's free, but there's an incentive to return it and not just bring it to your homeless encampment. I went from amused to legitimately angry. So we were guessing what this would cost. Everybody hears from the United States buys groceries, and we didn't pay any attention to costs as we were just putting in the cart what we would actually eat over a week. And we all came in around $400, about $400. It was $104 US here. And that's when you start to realize that ideology maybe doesn't matter as much as you thought, corruption. If you take people's standard of living and you tank it through filth and crime and inflation, and they literally can't buy the groceries they want, at that point, maybe it matters less what you say or whether you're a good person or a bad person. You're wrecking people's lives in their country, and that's what our leaders have done to us.
When Tucker Carlson interviewed Vladimir Putin, by the way, Vladimir Putin was so amused by Tucker Carlson's easy questioning that he actually mocked him. Tucker Carlson has massaged the Iranian dictatorship and admitted to not asking any difficult questions of the president of that dictatorship.
The interview is limited by a couple of factors. One, it was done by remote through a translator. That's always awkward. For another, I don't speak Persian. And there are all kinds of questions that I didn't ask the president of Iran, particularly questions to which I knew I could not get an honest answer, such as, was your nuclear program totally disabled by the bombing campaign by the U.S. government a week and a half ago? There's no chance he's going to answer that question honestly. I didn't bother to ask it. The answer, in fact, from an American perspective, even from the CIA's perspective, is unknowable.
Tucker bizarrely worships at the altar of Qatar.
They're mad at you because you don't put your parents in some institution. Maybe they're trying to break up your families.
Well, it can be a reason. Honestly, I don't know what is really the purpose behind this, but we see that, you know, a lot of things that are happening are attacks on humanity in general. It's when you lose the family value, when you lose the connection between the family themselves, you will lose the connection between the people as well, on a broader level, on the people in the same neighborhood, on the people in the same region, in the same countries. And that's basically will just make us, you know, as individuals who are quote unquote independent from anyone, that's what we will feel. Yet it will just make our societies vulnerable and easy to be penetrated.
That's right.
Tucker Carlson praises Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro, even as Maduro keeps the entire country in communist penury and ships fentanyl into the United States to kill Americans by the hundreds of thousands.
Why are we so opposed to Nicolas Maduro? So if you ask someone on the street, random person, why are we against Nicolas Maduro? The answer you're going to get is, who's Nicolas Maduro? But if you find someone in South Florida, for example, who knows who Nicolas Maduro is, who can identify where Venezuela is on a map, that person will almost certainly say, well, because he's a communist or a socialist, he's exceedingly left-wing. And that is true. Nicolas Maduro and his government are very left-wing on economics, not on social policy, by the way, which is kind of interesting. In Venezuela, gay marriage is banned, abortion is banned, sex changes for transgenderism are banned. It's one of the very few countries in the entire hemisphere with those policies. It is on social policy, not defending the regime, just saying, one of the most conservative countries in North or South or Central America. Only El Salvador really comes close.
Tucker Carlson glosses Hamas, the genocidal jihadi group behind October 7th, as a political organization.
You can't claim that they're in Hamas while simultaneously claiming that Hamas is a group of jihadis. They're Islamic extremists, which they also claim constantly, which I don't know if that's true, by the way. It seems more like a political organization, but whatever it is, they're telling us constantly they're Al-Qaeda.
Tucker Carlson has attacked President Trump as a cover-up artist for sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein on behalf of Israel and Mossad, making sure, of course, never to mention President Trump's name, because, of course, Tucker's a coward.
And moreover, it's extremely obvious to anyone who watches that this guy had direct connections to a foreign government. Now, no one's allowed to say that that foreign government is Israel because we have been somehow cowed into thinking that that's naughty. There is nothing wrong with saying that. There is nothing hateful about saying that.
Tucker Carlson has stated that President Trump has undermined America First and MAGA by attacking Iran, giving in to neocon ghouls like Mark Levin, while also idiotically arguing that President Trump striking Iran's nuclear facilities would lead to World War III. Spoiler alert, it didn't. Tucker Carlson also said in his interview with Nick Fuentes that the people he hates most in the entire world, more than ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Trans-Tifa, Marxists, rapists, murderers, are Christian Zionists who represent an enormous chunk of the conservative base. According to Tucker Carlson, who admits that he first read the Bible all the way through just 2 years ago, Christians who support a Jewish state of Israel are heretics and blasphemers with a brain virus.
How do you explain Mike Huckabee, Ted Cruz, and there are a lot like that, John Bolton. I mean, I've known them all, George W. Bush, like Karl Rove. I mean, all people I know personally who I've seen like be seized by this brain virus, and they're not Jewish. Most of them are self-described Christians, and then the Christian Zionists who are, well, Christian Zionists. Like, what is that?
Right.
And I could just say for myself, I dislike them more than anybody. Because like what? Because it's Christian heresy, and I'm offended by that as a Christian.
Tucker Carlson has said that he despises American Jews who care about October 7th. We, in his words, don't care about America and also want to get his kids killed in a foreign war.
I've got 4 draft-age children. So if you're playing recklessly, fast and loose with their lives, then I have a right to despise you, and I do. So if you're Nikki Haley, who's running for president, or Ben Shapiro, or half the people I see on television casually mentioning the possibility of nuclear war or sending Americans to fight in the Middle East, or in any way involving us in a war that has nothing to do with prosperity and peace at home, nothing, in other words, to do with us, Americans, then I have a right to call you out and be really offended because it's my family. They live here. It's not a joke to me. There's nothing abstract about it.
But most of all, Tucker Carlson acts as an ideological launderer for other people's evils. Tucker Carlson says many inflammatory things, always buying back just enough of it to appear as though he's not saying what he's clearly saying. He's a master of gaslighting. Tucker Carlson, for example, would never say out loud what Nick Fuentes does. He wouldn't say the things many of his guests say. And so instead, he acts as an ideological launderer. He takes other people's hideous ideas, he softens them, he treats them with love and care, and then he provides them with a massive signal boost. He isn't merely talking to people in good faith, of course. He's promoting certain people and ideas and attacking others. So, for example, he'll ask a series of wildly obsequious questions to Nick Fuentes. He'll even let Nick Fuentes' support for Joseph Stalin slide.
It's actually funny. It was December 18th. I remember because that's an important date to me. And it's Joseph Stalin's birthday.
Oh.
I'm a fan.
You're a fan of Stalin's.
Always an admirer. But we don't need to go into that, I guess.
Well, that's okay. Let's get back. We'll circle back to that.
But he will grill Ted Cruz about the population of Iran. Tucker Carlson will have on Vladimir Putin's evil anti-American mouthpiece, Alexander Dugin, and then praise him.
Alexander Dugin is a 62-year-old Russian academic philosopher. He spent his life in Moscow. He was an anti-Soviet dissident as a young man. And now he is famous the world over, in the English language press anyway, as, quote, Putin's brain. But he is not a political figure here in Russia. He is, once again, a philosopher. And his ideas are deeply offensive to some people. In August of 2022, his only daughter was murdered in Moscow when a car bomb killed her. U.S. intelligence says she was murdered by the Ukrainian government, and we take that at face value. But what's interesting is that, once again, Alexander Dugin is not a military leader. He's not a close daily advisor to Vladimir Putin. He is a writer who writes about big ideas. And for this, his books have been banned by the Biden administration in the United States. You cannot buy them on Amazon, banning books in the United States because the ideas inside are too dangerous. He's often described, again, in the English language press, as far right. We'll let you assess. But we wanted to talk to him about some of his ideas, these ideas that are so dangerous that his only daughter was murdered over them, and his book's been banned in the United States.
Tucker Carlson will have on a Hitler-friendly pseudo-historian to minimize the Holocaust and blame Winston Churchill for World War II, and he will call him America's best and most honest historian.
I thought Churchill was the chief villain of the Second World War. Now, he didn't kill the most people. He didn't commit the most atrocities. But I believe, and I think when you really get into it and tell the story right and don't leave anything out, you see that he was primarily responsible for that war becoming what it did, becoming something other than an invasion of Poland. You know, Germany, look, they put themselves into a position, and Adolf Hitler is chiefly responsible for this, but his whole regime is responsible for it, that when they went into the East in 1941, they launched a war where they were completely unprepared to deal with the millions and millions of prisoners of war, of local political prisoners and so forth that they were going to have to handle. They went in with no plan for that. And they just threw these people into camps, and millions of people ended up dead there.
And that is the pseudo-historian that Tucker Carlson has said is the best and most honest historian in America. Tucker Carlson will have on over and over a pro-Chinese propagandist who used global warming to promote global socialism, all in order to criticize Israel and hug China.
Israel has run American foreign policy in the Middle East for 30 years. That's how it works. This is actually the truth. If we drop our angst on big bad Russia, actually, we didn't have a chance to talk about it this time, maybe another time, big bad China, which is also not going to invade the United States, not going to threaten us, not going to go to war with us. They're trying to deal with aging, and they've got their declining population and many other things. Not that they're falling apart. It's a very impressive civilization, but they're not a threat to the United States, honestly, and Iran is not a threat.
Tucker Carlson, of course, brings on pro-Hamas voices episode after episode after episode. The instances are almost limitless. Tucker Carlson will host Andrew Tate, a pornographer and scam artist who mocks rape victims and preaches a cult of narcissism and cruelty. And of course, Tucker Carlson will glorify him and present him as a maligned truth teller rather than an emblem of moral rot. See, this is how Tucker Carlson's ideological laundering works. You bring your dirty, ugly ideologies to Tucker Carlson's rhetorical car wash. He mixes it with some of the vestigial respect Americans have for him from his Fox News days, and voila, hideous ideas suddenly become mainstream. And then, of course, Tucker denies he said anything controversial at all. He was just asking questions. He was just interviewing people. You don't want him to cancel people, do you? Of course, there is no First Amendment right to a Tucker Carlson sensual massage. But to listen to Tucker, you'd think there was, so long as you despise America, oppose President Trump's foreign policy, and bear a peculiar dislike of Jews. Tucker Carlson, you see, is a coward. And here is where his relationship with Nick Fuentes begins, with Nick Fuentes correctly pointing out that Tucker Carlson is a coward. You see, Tucker Carlson, a few weeks back, had on Candace Owens to treat her to his usual ideological laundering services. That's after years of Candace Owens saying things like this.
And it is the case that dinosaur bones, for whatever reason, are always just found by the paleontologist. Like, it's not like you and me walking outside. I'm like, hey, a dinosaur bone. And, or by somebody who's related to a paleontologist. It's very strange. And then, but it was just convenient for Israel that JFK got shot. It was just convenient, you guys. Totally convenient. It was convenient for Israel, by the way, when the towers went down.
I just want to be clear. Anything happens to me, blame the Zionists. Like 1000% blame the Zionists. Like let that be my parting word. I'm waking people up to the fact that pedophiles are in power. Yes. They are literally in power. And that is intentional because then they can be controlled while they are in power. And they are also exhibiting signs of a psychopathology that lets them know that they will do harm to the masses and feel nothing because they were themselves, many of them, raped when they were children. Yep. It is not a coincidence that Justin Trudeau is gay. Obama, gay. Zelensky, gay. Emmanuel Macron, gay and married to a trans man who molested him when he was a child.
Well, Candace Owens had recently hosted Nick Fuentes, and this led Tucker Carlson, in an attempt to dissociate from Fuentes, to label him a weird little gay kid operating from a basement, and a Fed as well.
That's obvious to me. I've been around a long time. I know it when I see it.
Yeah, and I will say I don't understand it. We were very kind to him. Like, I truly, like, we almost said, like, we felt maybe he was a bit lonely. We should invite him back for dinner. I mean, that's how good of an experience I had.
It's clearly it's
and then
it
was a 180. So it's either A, it's being driven from like a little boy insecurity, and he just was so worried that he like just went on the attack because he doesn't know how to have normal relations after being banned everywhere.
Well, I think there's that could
be one element.
The angry gay kid thing going on. Yeah.
Well, Nick Fuentes did not take kindly to this. After all, here was Tucker Carlson, a man Nick Fuentes correctly sees as a fellow traveler, dismissing him, all the while refusing to say the sorts of things for which Fuentes takes slings and arrows. And so Fuentes unleashed on him as a fraud and also as an expert on gaslighting.
Tucker is like the GOAT of gaslighting. But unironically, he goes up at the memorial and said, Charlie Kirk told the truth. You know who else told the truth? Jesus. And you know what happened? He got killed by Jews. And people said, so are you saying that the Jews killed Charlie Kirk in the way that they killed Jesus for telling the truth because they hate the truth? And Tucker said, I never said that. You're crazy. I never said that. Everyone eats hummus. What do you mean? Everyone runs Jerusalem. But I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. Tucker Carlson says, I have so many trust funds, I never have to work. Tucker went to a $45,000 per year private high school, then a $45,000 per year selective Ivy League school in New England. Tucker Carlson's daddy was a Reagan appointee. And then, after years of bragging about being an elite, bragging about being so out of touch and so rich, now he's going to be the spokesperson for all the white people. Now he's going to roll up his sleeves. I just like to hunt and fish in my log cabin. I care about Klarna and credit card debt. But then when it comes to me, I'm one of the real disaffected white people. You want to talk about me and them? I am them.
Well, there was one big problem for Tucker Carlson in all of this. Nick Fuentes is absolutely 100% correct. Tucker is a coward, and Tucker's audience, much of which he shares with Nick Fuentes, knows it. And so Tucker hit upon a final stratagem. He let Nick Fuentes cuck him. He brought Nick Fuentes on to legitimate his ideology. He signal boosted Fuentes, glossed him, shined him, presented him to the world, all in order to protect his own reputation with his online base, a base he is competing over with Nick Fuentes. Now, of course, Tucker has a right to do all of this for the 100th time. He can do what he likes. This is America. But there's no question that Tucker has become the most virulent super spreader of vile ideas in America. And the rest of us who oppose those vile ideas have every right to call him that. There's one other element here that's even darker if possible. Tucker Carlson preys on the friendship he proclaims with others, and then he knifes them directly between the shoulder blades when convenient for him. Tucker Carlson is, in short, a terrible friend. Tucker Carlson was supposedly Charlie Kirk's friend. Charlie believed that Nick Fuentes was vermin. That's a direct quote. He believed that because Nick Fuentes dedicated his life to destroying Charlie Kirk and TPUSA from the inside. In fact, here's Nick Fuentes describing Charlie Kirk the month before Charlie was murdered.
Charlie Kirk cannot call himself a Christian anymore. Sorry, you forfeited that. I do not want to hear, and you cannot allow Charlie Kirk to go to one more public event one more question and answer, one more ask me anything, without being protested, without being shouted down, without being interrogated about this. This guy goes around from campus to campus in the most artificial and phony and fake way.
And here is Nick Fuentes describing how he destroyed TPUSA from the inside.
Whether he chooses to confront me or not, whether he has dignity and honor or not, it's just a matter of time. My ideas are already there. I've already impregnated your organization. I took Turning Point USA and I fucked it. I took your organization, I took your baby, Turning Point USA, and I fucked it. And I've been fucking it. And that's why it's filled with groypers. That's why your whole crew, that's why the people around you, that's why your chapter presidents, that's why your attendees, they're all groypers.
And here's Nick Fuentes calling Charlie Kirk unpatriotic and talking about how he's a retarded idiot and saying all firepower should be focused on Charlie Kirk.
I think a lot of people are starting to find out Charlie Kirk is not the patriot that he says he is. And so I look at what happened last night and I think to myself, this is totally a doable operation. You know, Charlie Kirk in the grand scheme of things is just some retarded idiot. The dog is terrified. I had to go upstairs and reassure him because I'm screaming at my screen, calling Charlie Kirk a bitch and everything. The contrast could not be more clear. Charlie Kirk is a totally unexceptional human being. A moral struggle that's happening on the higher dimension, right? Which is Christ versus the devil. Who does Charlie Kirk serve? You know, is he really a Christian? Is he really Christ-like when he supports foreign wars and Israel and all this? Look at the people he's taking money from. You know, so the guy's a fake Christian. The guy's not a patriot. He hates our country. He's un-American. Let's focus all our firepower on Charlie Kirk. Why are we doing this? It's because Charlie Kirk is a fake patriot, a fake Christian, and he hates his people. He's anti-white. This is our angle.
Nick Fuentes despised Charlie Kirk. And for good reason, because Charlie Kirk actually opposed Nick's evil program. Here's what Charlie Kirk had to say about Nick Fuentes' agenda.
But if you go back to the original founding fathers, they intended this to be a European nation for white men of good stock and character.
So, can you show me, let me answer the question. Can you show me where in the United States Constitution it says that?
It wasn't in the Constitution.
It wasn't in the Constitution because they didn't believe it.
The founding...
What does the phrase e pluribus unum mean? What does the phrase e pluribus unum mean?
Why is that relevant?
Because it was on every founding document and presidential seal from our founding, which means out of many, one. You, sir, and your ideology is not conservative. It is right-wing, identitarian. It has no place in the conservative movement, my friend. Get out of line.
Meanwhile, the founding fathers were slaveholders. So, you know, Charlie's not being really genuine here. I tell you, folks, this is very interesting. It's you know, it's like who should we not follow, and it's pointing them all out.
Get out of line. I don't platform trolls, and I don't platform and I don't discuss people or I don't debate with people that are not good faith actors. And
you debate Maoists and people who champion.
They can keep on yelling at how successful we are and our big events and well over 1,000 employees, but there's a lot of jealousy out there. We build, they complain. We succeed, we win. They blame the Jews.
After Charlie's death, TPUSA made Tucker Carlson one of its chief faces. Tucker, of course, spoke at Charlie's memorial, where he implied that hummus-eating nefarious Jews killed Charlie, with no mention of the ideology of the actual alleged murderer, who was, of course, a trans activist gay furry.
So, you know, Ben still thinks it's Tyler Robinson. So, the guy pushed the vax, thinks it's Tyler Robinson. How do you get as big as you are? How do you sound as intelligent as you are while being a complete fucking idiot?
Tucker Carlson, in fact, has spent more time talking about Jews and Israel since Charlie's death than about the Trans-Tifa ideology that motivated Charlie Kirk's killer. By a long shot, it's not close, which is not a surprise since he seems to spend very little time these days attacking anyone on the left. Well, now Tucker Carlson has seen fit to launder Nick Fuentes, the person who hated Charlie most and who wished him destruction. That's not an act of friendship, it's an act of sick evil. And then, of course, there's Tucker Carlson's relationship with the vice president. Certainly, Vice President Vance has been quite generous with Tucker Carlson. That loyalty was not reciprocated last week, to say the least. Here, for example, is what Nick Fuentes has said about J.D. Vance's wife, Usha.
Andrew Tate and Bronze Age pervert and all these people, for years, all they talk about is going to the gym, being a vitalist, fighting the Matrix, India smells bad, all this kind of shit. And now they're all in favor of a fat race mixer who's married to a Jeet who named his son Vivek, who was mentored by a Jewish neocon and a gay Fed, Peter Thiel. This guy has a non-white wife and a kid named Vivek. This guy is going to be a defender of white identity? I don't think so. This guy's going to defend American identity?
You slammed J.D. Vance for having an Indian wife, yet Trump's wife is an immigrant who was working here illegally for a time. His son is half foreign, bilingual, and holds dual citizenship, yet you give him a pass. You're either a hypocrite or just retarded.
She's white. Dude, she's white. If we had millions of Slovenian supermodels immigrating to America, I don't think we'd have a big problem with it.
Tucker Carlson had on Nick Fuentes and did not ask him a single question about any of this. He just brought him on to launder his ugly ideas and make him more popular. That doesn't seem quite like the act of a friend. Which, finally, brings us to the Heritage Foundation. Now, I have a long and admiring relationship with the Heritage Foundation. One of the very first outlets to pick up my syndicated column when I was 17 years old, 24 years ago, was townhall.com, then a property of the Heritage Foundation. I know most of the leadership very well, and I have for decades. I know Kevin Roberts, and I like him, and I'm grateful for his contributions to the conservative movement. If you're a regular watcher of this show, you can check the interview I did with Kevin on the release of his book just last December. Which is why what Kevin Roberts did last week is tragic and awful. He put out a statement that Heritage Foundation didn't just stand by Tucker Carlson. Kevin instead said openly and repeatedly that Tucker Carlson can do nothing, ever, that will sever his relationship with the conservative movement. He said that after and in defense of Tucker's glossing of Hitler defender Nick Fuentes. And he added that only members of the globalist class, direct quote, a venomous coalition, direct quote, subject to the dictates of someone else's agenda, direct quote, oppose Heritage's ongoing relationship with Tucker Carlson, which means that according to Kevin Roberts, apparently, anyone opposing the ongoing mainstreaming of Tucker Carlson is acting on behalf of a foreign power. Kevin's statement is a betrayal of the Heritage Foundation's history and principles, which is presumably why both Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes loved it. And that's a tragedy, because America needs a robust conservative organization based on principle and ideas, not personal loyalty to bad actors like Tucker Carlson. We need strong leaders in the conservative movement willing to speak out against the moral rot that threatens our future. I hope Kevin Roberts and Heritage show us that they can still be those leaders. But if not, we'll have to look elsewhere. So, why is all of this happening? Because, like the Democratic Party, the Republican Party is being eaten by its radicals. Many in the political class are too cowardly to stand up. Apparently, they're willing to play footsie with groypers and hug Tucker Carlson out of fear of somehow losing support. They've been bamboozled by the lies of the X algorithm and the TikTok metrics. The left followed its radicals to electoral hell. Apparently, many on the right wish to do the same. Forget the morality then for just a moment. Let's be pragmatic. Here is the thing. Americans hate Nick Fuentes' philosophy. They think it's trash. Republicans, by the polling, think it's trash. Independents think it's trash. Democrats think it's trash. And here's the other thing. Americans hate Tucker Carlson's laundered anti-Americanism. Republicans think it's trash. Independents think it's trash. Democrats think it's trash. Americans are not pro-segregation, pro-rape, anti-woman, pro-child marriage, anti-black, anti-Jew, anti-Indian, anti-Latino, anti-Constitution, pro-Hitler nutjobs like Nick Fuentes. Americans are not pro-Putin, pro-Iran, pro-China, pro-Venezuela, pro-Hamas, pro-Fuentes, pro-Tate idiots like Tucker Carlson. They hate this vile garbage. If Republicans decide to cower before the likes of neo-Nazis and their propagandizers, they deserve to lose. And they will lose. Neo-Nazis and their propagandizers are not Republicans. They're not America First. They're not MAGA. They sure as hell aren't conservative. These people aren't to my rights. They're not attached in any way to the fundamental principles of conservatism. And these people have already declared themselves to be my enemies. I'd be a fool not to take them seriously. If they get their way, they will hollow out the Republican Party, lead it to electoral catastrophe, and empty it and the country of any semblance of decency in the process. My answer is no. No to the Groypers. No to their publicists like Tucker Carlson. No to those who champion them. No to demoralization. No to bigotry and anti-meritocratic horseshit. No to anti-Americanism. No. This is our country. This is our party. And this is our conservative movement. And I will not stand by while it is handed over to those who betray the most fundamental principles I've spent my entire life defending and advocating. That is a path to defeat and a path to moral oblivion. I reject it because if we lose the right, we will lose to the left. And either way, we'll lose the country. I'm Ben Shapiro. This is The Ben Shapiro Show.
There you go. By the way, Jen, great call. That was an important call right there. Yeah. Okay. So my friends, yes, if you'd like to support the show, these are the ways in which you can do it. And thank you for that. And thank you for all your love and support. So my friends, this is, Moonbeam mentioned it. They're sensationalists. They want clicks. They want, how much of it is real? How much of it is theater? Especially given the show and given this nonsense. So just to kind of my take on it, and I welcome your take on it is as well, is that Shapiro is shoving these guys so far to the right that they extreme and nasty and the whole bit, they're fans of Stalin, they're fans of Putin, they're, et cetera, et cetera. They're fans of Qatar so far. And then he is staying here, calm, cool, collected, not using the language, not using his sensationalism. And then saying that I am an American and I am America first, and meaning him. And he's staying here far from the extreme left as well, but he's pushing them off the screen so that he stands alone. Meanwhile, people want to hear from Tucker more than they want to hear from him. But what's important to understand is that these guys aren't asking for your donations. Okay. They're not saying, hey, this show, these lights, this room, this home, the food that sustains me, the drinks I drink while I'm doing the show, while I'm researching. They have people that are taking care of them, my friends. And it's not you, it's not the individual so much as it's big money, Israeli money, generational money, institutional money, the Heritage Foundation, things like that. Like, these people don't need your $5, $10, $20 to exist. They don't need that at all. So they're not beholden to you. They are there to manipulate you. And I found that entire thing. And by the way, I know it was tough to sit through. I sat through it twice. Okay. All right. So I jumped on the grenade for it. I jumped on that shitty Ben Shapiro grenade, covered in a yarmulke, and it wasn't pretty and it wasn't fun, but I did it for you. And I did it for me. But this is why we have to make sure that we are supporting those that are not manipulating us in the way that we just witnessed across the board. Like, not just Ben, but Tucker, but Fuentes, but the Groypers, but, Kirk. But Kirk, listen, Kirk was pretty much spot on with a lot of stuff except Israel. And I stopped following him when, after October 7th, he did not turn tables on Israel. But now we see some footage, the Patrick Ben David show, the texts and the text messages late late in his life, that now I'm like, okay, he finally saw the light with what was really coming out of Israel, which is, pure fucking propaganda. So, so at any rate, I hope you enjoyed that as best you can. But if you want to support somebody like me versus them, please do so. And you guys like that sped up. That was a good call, Jen. That was a really good call. I actually thought about slowing it down to see if he sounded normal. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, Whippensborough. That's a great point. That's kind of my take. Like, can't we just sit here and like have a conversation and interact with comments and just be calm about the whole thing? I get worked up. I get angry at the deep state. I get pissed, that, when certain things happen. I don't tolerate ignorance well. But the whole thing is, every single one of these people, they're meant to be staccato voices, boom, 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 so that it distracts you and it throws you off your balance. This is what our media has become. And instead of just having a calm conversation, and which, by the way, the conversation between Tucker and Nick was very calm and very respectful. And you know what? I got to see a little bit about what each of them, really, really believed. And I think that was an important thing. Because they're two very popular people, and I want to hear what they have to say on certain things and see if they've turned on anything. And Tucker allowed for that. Tucker gave him a platform, but to Shapiro, he's a cuck. He's fluffing him. He's, all these sexual terms, by the way, that Shapiro uses. But Nick saying fuck you, fuck them, is like, oh, we can't have that. But Shapiro's going to use, the fluff term for, porn sets. He's going to use the cuck term, all these sexual terms, but he does it so eloquently that it's okay. What a fraud. What a fraud. It's unbelievable. So, I want to take you to a few things. I want to wrap things up pretty quickly because of the, just trying to keep it short, but certainly, here's Mark Levin, who is, to me, maybe more vile than all of them in his downright, love for Israel.
And I just want the anti-American, anti-Israel, anti-West crowd to understand something. You're going to have to come through me and millions of people just like me, and you're not going to make it. You think your stupid little podcast, or your stupid little subscription program, or your little TV show, or maybe you have a little radio show, is going to change the world like hell it is. Not if I and everybody else have something to say about it. And I just...
Yeah, so I guess if you're a podcaster that disagrees with Mark Levin, you're less than him. And you got to go through me, Levin. Let me just explain something to you. I don't have your viewership, I don't have your money, and I don't have your institutional money from the Republican Jewish Coalition, AIPAC, all these organizations, flying you to Israel. But let me tell you something. I'm not going to go through you. I'm going to go over you. And all of you, basically that are have just completely ignored the amount of Palestinians that are now dead because of a very, very corrupt government. This has nothing to do with your religion or your belief or what hat you wear. This has everything to do with challenging a government that has absolutely committed a genocide against the Palestinian people and continue to, and violate the ceasefire, but blame it on Hamas. Meanwhile, paying for Hamas, creating Hamas, paying Hamas through Qatar. We know all these things. So make no mistake about it. Yeah, my little podcast that you discredit, Mark Levin, I haven't sold my soul to the devil like you have, and I'm not going to go through you. I'm going over you. Okay? And I'm going to fucking dunk on you because this whole Israeli first charade is going to be exposed and everyone's going to see it. Everyone's going to see it. John Ratcliffe, CIA director. Real Donald Trump is right. United States believes that Russia probably is not adhering to the nuclear testing moratorium in a manner consistent with the zero yield standard. Defense Intelligence Agency Director Lieutenant General Robert Ashley Jr., May 2019. April 15, 2020, Wall Street Journal. Possible Chinese nuclear testing stirs U.S. concern. Beijing might secretly be conducting small nuclear tests at its Lopner site, report says. Well, what did President Trump just decide to do recently? Begin nuclear testing, right? Congressman Randy Fine, he's doing some good things in Congress, but 400,000 Americans died to defeat Team Hitler. You're a very definition of America last. And he is jumping on this, okay? Let's see. Trump tells Ilhan Omar to leave the country. Sorry, Trump can hate all he wants. I'm not going anywhere. We'll see about that. We'll see about that. Scott Adams. Scott Adams, I don't know. He does a coffee show in the morning. He created the show Dilbert, not the show. Yeah, I guess it was a show too. It was a comic strip. He said, on Monday, I will ask President Trump via X to help save my life. He offered to help me if I needed it because he has cancer. I need it. As many of you know, I have metastasized prostate cancer. My healthcare provider, Kaiser of Northern California, has approved my application to receive a newly FDA-approved drug called Pluvicto, but they have dropped the ball in scheduling the brief IV to administer, and I can't seem to fix that. I'm declining fast. I will ask President Trump if he can get Kaiser of Northern California to respond and schedule it for Monday. That will give me a fighting chance to stick around on this planet a little longer. It's not a cure, but it does give good results to many people. And then Scott reposted update, getting Pluvicto, the cancer drug, tomorrow via Kaiser Northern California. The Trump administration works fast. Amazing. For context, I waited months for the drug like everyone else, but I think my files got misplaced or something, and that glitch just got corrected. Not sure. Yeah, and then Elon drops some other things that might be helpful. Hey, thank you. So that was pretty important. I like they got back. Like Dan Scavino said, we're on it, and he got the message to President Trump. And helping this guy out, like doing real stuff for real people. Like this is pretty badass. Like I'm fired up for Scott Adams. Of course, Brandon Tatum is jumping on the bandwagon. Here's Byron Douglas, you know, who, you know, I kind of like.
The Republican Party was founded to free the slaves. The Republican Party has always stood for civil rights. The Republican Party has always stood for freedom of speech and freedom to worship your God and freedom to live your life, free from the tyranny of government and free from the tyranny that plagued Europe. You see, we are not a party that stands for Marxism. We don't stand for communism. We don't stand for totalitarianism. We stand for constitutionalism and liberty. That is our party. And so while you have some people who might want to call into question certain things when it comes to Israel, let me be very clear. In our party, we will not tolerate anti-Semitism. We will not tolerate bigotry.
You know, fuck these people. Like this motherfucker got what did he get? $90,703 from AIPAC direct campaign contribution during the 2023-24 election cycle. Okay. Yeah. So challenging, I want to be very clear about something. Challenging the government of Israel is not anti-Semitic. And they're all pushing this that way. It's not, it's just inaccurate. Plain and simple. Okay. It's plain and simple. I thought this was interesting. I wanted to share this with you. I don't know much about this, but this guy seems to be on top of it, and I thought you guys would like to hear this.
This legit is maybe the most mind-blowing Bible fact I've ever learned in my entire life. I've been waiting 6 years to get this out because it never fits in a sermon. Jesus ascended into heaven when he was standing on, in Acts chapter 1, the Mount of Olives. And he specifically said in Acts chapter 1, he said, I'm going to come in the exact same way that I go. And there are other prophecies, I'm going to read them here in a second, that specifically make it sound like it's clear when Jesus returns and he descends, he's going to descend and stand right on top of the Mount of Olives again. Let's go a layer deeper. So if you're ever there on the Mount of Olives is east of the Temple Mount. So in Ezekiel 43, it's one of the passages that Jewish people for millennia have been like, that's a messianic prophecy. Listen really close, bro. This is insane. Then the man brought me back to the outer gate of the sanctuary, the one facing the east, and it was shut. It is to remain shut because the Lord, the God of Israel, has entered through it. And when it says has entered through it, this is prophetic foreshortening, talking about a future event as if it were in the past. This right here is the East Gate, as seen from when you're standing on the Mount of Olives. That's literally what you're looking at right there, East Gate right there. Now, you look at it, you're like, where's the gate, bro? Because it's all bricked up. The guy's name was Sultan Suleiman. He conquered Jerusalem in 1517. The Islamic guy had fear of the future Messiah coming and this specific prophecy, and he's the dude that bricked up the East Gate because he was going, I'm gonna make sure that prophecy can never get fulfilled. Okay, now check this out. Zechariah 14:3-5. His feet shall stand upon the Mount of Olives, which faces Jerusalem on the east, and the Mount of Olives shall be split in two from east to west, making a large valley. Half of the mountain shall move to the north and half of it to the south. In 1964, look this up. There's a million news stories about this. These Jewish dudes want to build a hotel on the top of the Mount of Olives. They've got to get a geological survey done before they build on the top of a historic mountain. When they do the geological survey, they discover that there is a fault line that runs right underneath the Mount of Olives. It is an east to west fault line that runs right from the top of the Mount of Olives right to the East Gate. when Jesus returns, he'll descend on that mountain. And I think what's going to happen is the Bible talks about the earth and the heavens being shaken. I think that in fulfillment of this prophecy, that whole valley will just do this. All those stones that dude put in front of that thing are going to fall right down. Yeah. And he's going to walk right through that thing, stand on that Temple Mount and be like, where are you at now?
Interesting take on that whole thing. That's something I'm resharing this on the feed. I want to share this with you. This was shared by Script Keeper and something that I'm keeping my eye on. Check this out.
I can affect individuals' brain functions in a variety of different ways, both positively and negatively, by engaging or disengaging nodes and networks of the brain that therefore affect their cognitions, emotions, and ultimately their behaviors. Something my colleague Jamie Canton likes to play with an awful lot is the idea of specialized neural operations. And here, once again, we're talking about the use of either drugs and or devices to modify the integrity of brain function that we realize can also modify individuals' perception of time and space. I infiltrate that bug's nervous system and I control the way it moves. By controlling the way it moves, I control the way it goes. I control its wings pattern. I control where it hovers, where it flies, where it articulates. And what I can also do is I can then couple this to a very, very small scale set of either biosensors or cameras. And what I basically have here is a biodrone. I can go one step further and I can also impregnate that individual organism with a very small scale weaponizable delivery mode. In other words, if I'm using a very, very small scale bioweapon, such as a very potent organotoxin or the delivery of a very small level of microbes that we know can either replicate and infect or is genetically modified to have a very, very high morbidity effect, I can then utilize this not only as a reconnaissance drone, but also as an infiltrative weaponizable drone that can then deliver some payload.
Pretty important stuff with the jab, with the graphene oxide, with the antenna that they put in to people. Very, very serious and very important to keep an eye out for. And also, get people on some nicotine to kill the spike protein, to, try to reverse some of the effects. Look up McCullough, things of that nature. Okay, so I want to share let me see here. Let me see if there's anything. Yeah. So this is what's going on right now. This is from John Solomon, reposted by Real America's Voice. Check this out.
All right, let's get down to some big bombshell news that just moved a couple of minutes ago over at justthenews.com. We've been following the story of James Comey. He's indicted for lying to Congress, saying he never authorized any of his staff to leak to the media. And late last week, as we told you, he played the victim card. I'm being maliciously prosecuted because Donald Trump hates me. Well, today, the Kash Patel FBI and the lead attorney prosecuting his case, Lindsay Halligan, well, they responded, and they responded with a lot of evidence. What did they respond with? James Comey's own emails and his own handwritten notes. And what do they show? They show that James Comey was clearly aware that his top aide was providing information anonymously to the news media. Not only was he aware of it, he wrote in a private email, "Good job, my friend," actually congratulating him when Dan Richman, one of his top lieutenants, told him what he had just done with the New York Times. Yes, just like the indictment said, the story is about Hillary Clinton's email, so it backs up the government's case that Comey was authorizing leaks to through his staff to reporters concerning a Hillary Clinton case, just like they argued. But they went a little bit further. It turns out that when Kash Patel found those burn bags in that secret room where a whole bunch of FBI evidence was sitting, they found something special. Some handwritten notes by James Comey. What do those handwritten notes show? He appeared to be aware in September 2016 that of the U.S. intelligence intercept that Hillary Clinton had approved a plan to hang a fake Russian shingle on Donald Trump's house, campaign house. Now, that's important because the handwritten notes don't match with James Comey's testimony. James Comey told Congress, that doesn't sound familiar. I don't think I ever knew about that. He wrote about it in his handwritten notes. And finally, one will ask, well, why would James Comey do this? What was the motive? Today's emails that were just released in the court filing give us one other answer. He wrote to Dan Richmond, his lieutenant, that he fully expected soon to be working for President-elect Hillary Clinton. That's right from the emails. So he was waiting to work for Hillary Clinton, and he thought that Hillary Clinton would be grateful for the way he did things in handling her email case. Uh-oh. That wasn't what the victim card I think James Comey was planning to play. But all of that emails, all of those letters, all those court filings, even the handwritten notes, we just posted them at justthenews.com. You can go check them out today. We'll have more of that breaking news all throughout the night.
Yeah. So that's happening, my friends. That shit's going down. Paul Eggs Nolan, thank you for sharing that out. This is a little bit of Ben Shapiro that I didn't play for you.
Israel good, Tucker bad. Sending your tax money to Israel, good. Listening to Tucker, bad. You dying in war for Israel, good. Tucker podcast, bad. Daily Wire subscription, good. Everything else, bad. Oh, you like Jordan Peterson? Pay me a subscription, bitch. Israel, 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 good. America, not so much. Israel first, good. America first, not so good. Annoying voice, Ben Shapiro, good. Annoying laugh, Tucker Carlson, bad. Shalom, bitches. Please subscribe. Israel, good. Tucker, bad. Sending your tax money to Israel, good.
By the way, that was Il Donaldo Trumpo, who President Trump has flat out said he's him. So what's that tell you? Vincent Kennedy posted, it seemed odd at the time that they were arming 87,000 IRS agents, but these dots connect.
Crossing moments ago, IRS agents could soon be going on immigration raids. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem asking the Treasury Department to deputize their agents to help arrest and remove migrants from the United States. So far, no response on this plan from the Treasury. Crossing moments ago, IRS agents.
There you go. How about that, my friends? That's very interesting and coming up here soon. Let me share this with you real quick. Here's a post from Old Salty Marine. Bought a head of lettuce from a small grocery store called Mamas and Papas. Can't eat it because all the leaves are brown. And the sky is gray. Yeah, I love that one. Here's a transvestite story hour. Little kids handing this transvestite dollars for this show. I know what I wanted to show you. I wanted to show you one more thing about Mark Levin and just let you know this is what we're experiencing. Oh, by the way, Ted Cruz, the fight against anti-Semitism is existential. Yeah. Randy Fine, same stuff. The difference between a conservative woman packing and a liberal woman packing. There you go. Right there. All right. Pakistani Iman had been living in Italy for 29 years. One day after he gave a sermon declaring every Muslim must fight the infidels or face catastrophic consequences, PM Giorgia Meloni revoked his residence and deported him. There you go. That was shared by the Texas one. Okay. Joe M, who, did the video I shared with you last week on Q's birthday, October 28th. And I have on Snedheads, by the way. Let me take you to that real quick. By the way, here's Snedheads. Guys, if you haven't gotten on Snedheads, come on over. It's free to join. $17 a month if you want to support this fantastic little small town that I've created. You can play games, you can play chess, you can add friends. Everyone's a friend. Everyone's putting up their picture, their name, because it's private. Your information is not going anywhere. I'm not tracking you, any of that. and it's got some great research tools here that you're going to love. Folks, a lot of you I know are opening this in the morning and, let me go check out President Trump's, Truth Social. And you scroll down, boom, and you're there. 2 clicks and you're there. Okay. He's not, if Mandami wins the election, it's highly unlikely I will be contributing federal funds other than the very minimum as required to my beloved first home, because of the fact that as a communist, this once great city has zero chance of success or even survival. It can only get worse with a communist at the helm, and I don't want to send, as president, good money after bad. It is my obligation to run the nation, and it is my strong conviction that New York City will be a complete and total economic and social disaster should Mamdani win. His principles have been tested for over 1,000 years, and never once have they been successful. I would much rather see a Democrat who has had a record of success win than a communist with no experience and a record of complete and total failure. He was nothing as assemblyman, ranked at the bottom of the class, and as mayor of potentially, again, the greatest city in the world, he has no chance to bring it back to its former glory. We must also remember this. A vote for Curtis Sliwa, who looks much better without the bray, is a vote for Mamdani. Whether you personally like Andrew Cuomo or not, you really have no choice. You must vote for him and hope he does a fantastic job. He is capable of it. Mamdani is not. Now, interesting that President Trump is pushing Cuomo, who killed Grandma and Grandpa. But like Phil Dan's posted on Snedheads, DJT endorses Cuomo. Why? He's controlled after he was caught in the COVID nursing home fiasco. Absolutely. That's a great call, Phil. That's why we're seeing that. Okay. That's why we're seeing that kind of behavior. All right. But Joe M., back to his post, Joe M. said, MAGA isn't fractured. MAGA is learning and discerning who the plants and snakes are in our movement and exposing them. That's absolutely spot on, right? Check out this gentleman from Africa.
I'm going to say this again. If you want to help the people of Sudan, free Palestine. If you want to help the people of Congo, free Palestine. If you want to help the Christians in Nigeria from Boko Haram, free Palestine. The people of Libya, the Somalis facing Al-Shabaab, the people in Congo facing ADF and M23, those being killed by jihadist terrorists in the Sahel, those being attacked by the terrorists in Mozambique, and all the other populations wallowing in civil war and terrorism around the world. If you want to end all this human suffering, free Palestine. Until you understand that those who are butchering children in Gaza are the ones who are designing, funding, and orchestrating secretly all these jihadist terrorism and civil wars, until you start condemning the single biggest state sponsor of global terrorism, until you have understood the bigger picture, you have not understood anything at all about Israel and how far its evil tentacles and global ambitions really are. It is only once the apartheid state is ended, its Greater Israel project stopped, and its medieval global ambitions to rule the world all replaced by a true democracy in Palestine, with one state for all and everyone regardless of race, ethnicity, and religion, and everyone has equal rights and the right to vote in one nation for all Jews, all Christians, and all Muslims. Only then will all these malicious killings around the world stop, because they only exist as part of Israel's medieval global ambitions to instigate global conflicts whenever they can, wherever they can, and use their allies as useful idiots to achieve their insidious global supremacist ambition.
Israel and its allies are the state sponsors of terrorism and civil wars across Africa, putting billions of dollars into distracting the world from their genocide by paying Africans to slaughter Africans.
We're being exposed to the truth, my friends, and we must be prepared for it. Listen to this message from RFK Jr.
Hi, I'm Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and I send my greetings to all the distinguished delegates at the Mid-Atlantic Convention. I had hoped to be with you today, but the government shutdown means that I couldn't do that. The Mid-Atlantic Convention was born from a shared moral conviction that no human being should suffer from exposure to mercury. You came together to protect future generations from this potent neurotoxin, and I'm looking forward to continued progress. Article 4 of the convention calls on parties to cut mercury use by phasing out listed mercury-added products. But in 2010, as the treaty took shape, negotiators made a major exception. Thimerosal-containing vaccines were carved out of the regulation. The same treaty that began to phase out mercury in lamps and cosmetics chose to leave it in products injected into babies, pregnant women, and the most vulnerable among us. We have to ask why. Why do we hold a double standard for mercury? Why do we call it dangerous in batteries, in over-the-counter medications and makeup, but acceptable in vaccines and dental fillings? Thimerosal is a mercury-based preservative that has never undergone proper safety testing in humans. Hundreds of peer-reviewed studies identify it as a potent neurotoxin, a mutagen, a carcinogen, and an endocrine disruptor. Thimerosal's own label requires it to be treated as hazardous material and warns against ingestion. There is not a single study that proves it safe. That's why in July of this year, the United States closed the final chapter on the use of thimerosal as a vaccine preservative, something that should have happened years ago. I want to be clear, it's inexcusable that governments around the world still allow mercury-based compounds in healthcare when safe alternatives exist. Now that America has removed mercury from all vaccines, I call on every global health authority and every party to this convention to do the same. Manufacturers have confirmed that they can produce mercury-free, single-dose vaccines without interrupting supply. There is no excuse for inaction or holding stubbornly to the status quo. Let's honor and protect humanity and our children and creation from mercury, and let's act in the true spirit of the Mid-Atlantic Convention, the integrity of this historic treaty, and to ensure that no child anywhere in the world is ever exposed to this deadly neurotoxin again. Thank you.
Wow, folks. I mean, that is just huge. That's just amazing. Hey, so listen, I'm going to wrap things up. I think we got a big week ahead of us this week, my friends. And I should be on, might take Wednesday off. I'm not sure, but we'll see what's going on. But definitely tonight, tomorrow, and Thursday, and most likely Friday as well. I think we got some big things happening this week, and certainly the awareness around this absolute propaganda push for Israel is exposing Israel like it's never been exposed before. So it's very exciting to see. For those on X, thanks for making us number 5 tonight on X Live. And I'll leave you with the following, by, again, Mark Levin.
I don't need more than 15 minutes. The cowards. We're surrounded by cowards who have microphones, who have TV cameras, who have websites, who have columns. Cowards. It's spelled C-A-R-L-S-O-N. It's spelled F-U-E-N-T-E-S. It's spelled O-W-E-N-S. It's spelled B-A-N-N-O-N. It's spelled Marjorie Trader Green. You can figure that out yourself. And they're not alone. How are we going to attack the Mandamis and the Talibs and the Omars and the Sanders and the rest of them when in our own house this poison is spreading? We've got to take care of business. We can fight the enemy on the other side. But the problem is, the more daunting problem, the more complicated problem is when they're in our house and they're trying to take over our house and they're burning down our house and they're destroying America First and they're destroying MAGA and they're destroying the Republican Party, which means they're destroying the country. Either speak up and stand out, but don't be a pretender. Don't be a pretender. We need help to deal with these people.
Wow.
These aren't policy disputes. These aren't personality issues. We're talking about liberty versus tyranny, good versus evil, right versus wrong, democracy versus terrorism, Western Enlightenment versus 7th century barbarians, the greatest generation versus the Third Reich, Chamberlain versus Hitler, Reagan versus Stalin. Is it really that tough to call these buffoons out and to set the record straight? No, it's not. So I'm glad to see the courage that's pouring off this stage. I really am, and some of them deserve a pat on the back. But we need more. We need more. We need more. You don't come here, say things, and go home and forget about it. I stay up at nights thinking about this stuff, weekends thinking about this stuff, how we're going to fight it, how we're going to confront it, how we're going to defeat it. And you do it first and foremost by calling it out. That's what you do. This is America First, not the sick rantings of unaccomplished Neanderthals who have social media sites who've contributed absolutely nothing to this country. Zero.
Really? Okay. Thank you, Mark.
Here today to do something about this. Now, first of all, my wife, my mother-in-law, my dear friend, Ron, canceled David Duke. Donald Trump canceled David Duke. We canceled Pat Buchanan. We canceled the John Birch Society. We canceled Joseph Sobran. We canceled pornography on TV. We cancel stuff all the damn time. Hitler admirers, Stalin admirers, Jew haters, American haters, Churchill haters. You're damn right we're going to cancel them and deplatform them. It's called the market system. They don't have a lifetime job like a bureaucrat who we're going to protect. And if they're your friend, there's something wrong with you. No Hitler admirer, Holocaust denier, platformer should be anybody's friend, as a matter of fact.
He doesn't even want them having friends, guys. Yeah. So who's the fascist? Who wants to deplatform these people? Yeah. The people that you can't criticize are the people you need to look at the closest. Thanks for joining me, my friends. Wow. What we're living through is really something remarkable. And I don't have to tell you, they're going to be writing about and talking about this time in human history for a very, very long time. But we got to win. And part of winning is exposing all the lies, not just some of them, not just the convenient ones, not just the ones that don't affect our paycheck or our donations or any of that bullshit. All the lies have to be revealed, and we step into truth. And so we're finding out who those people are, and every single day, I feel stronger. Like watching Mark Levin and how scared he is, and how threatening he is, makes me realize that we're spot on. We're absolutely spot on, and it strengthens me. I'm excited about it. Yeah, fight, fight, fight. Truth, 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 and we will win. Thank you, my friends. I'll see you tomorrow night, 8 Central Standard Time. We're back on the time when, it's really light earlier in the morning and dark earlier in the night. And I don't like it. A lot of people don't like it. I know that it's safer for kids waiting for buses, cars driving and all that. But certainly the crime isn't an issue at that hour because, all the crime's done, at night, but not early in the morning. They tend to sleep in. But safer for kids, I know, but I think there's other ways to keep them safe, but without throwing everybody's internal clocks off. But that's a good conversation to have. All right. Love you all. Thank you, Moonbeam. Thank you, Quasi Pete. Thank you all for joining us, and much love to you all. Get some good rest tonight. We got a long week. Be well.